Are you on the edge of your seat? Because we're about to sound off with Kevin Williams, covering today's latest trends in location-based entertainment. Brought to you by the LBEXR Collective, your community to connect, engage, and inspire. All right, everyone, let's buckle up.
All right, well, welcome everybody to Sound Off with Kevin Williams. This is episode number 127 for June 30th, 2026. Kevin, my friend, you are back in London after AWE. How are you doing?
It's hotter there or here, and it was out in California.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
a scorcher at the moment.
That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, well, how are you going to change my mind this week?
Well, I'm bringing back a touchstone phrase that was pushed heavily during AWE, and that was serendipity. Nice word. And let's be clear, for all the hype, for all the technology, a lot of the success of the application of this technology, these systems, is way beyond the original intentions. And for how the dictionary defines this is an accidental successful accident, where what you weren't intending actually becomes a success or a trend. And it's that kind of thing that is kind of driving the thinking behind this next generation of the application of immersive technology, be it AI glasses or the new generation of VR systems. We are looking for that serendipitous moment where the technology finds a profitable bolt hole, which we may not have planned for. A number of projects that I've been involved with or have offered consultancy advice to have gone down a profitable route that was never the intended route that they were aiming for. One example being the sudden shock horror to find out that their particular immersive entertainment system was very appealing to the education market when they were focusing heavily on the party and the children's party and the private hire market. It is these kinds of pivots where the most important thing about developing a facility, a brand, or any entertainment enterprise, as well as a technology enterprise, is flexibility.
Oh, so, all right. Certainly agree with the concept of flexibility, agility, being willing to pivot and able to pivot to find the right markets, make changes to your platform, to your content, to your go-to-market pathway. All of those things I think are important. I was actually wondering which direction you were going to take this. So interesting that you said that it is more the attraction developer looking for that serendipitous moment where they actually find product market fit versus being the VR, XR, AR, we'll call it MR provider, and creating serendipitous moments for the guest. So I thought maybe that this was like, hey, maybe we should be focused on creating serendipity for our users, for our guests, and creating those happy accidents and moments where they're using this technology in ways that create surprise and delight during that experience versus, hey, we just happened to do something and it kind of worked, so we got lucky.
Why can't we have both?
I think the more that the attraction developers focus on creating the serendipitous moments for their particular users or target audience will help drive serendipity for them and finding product market fit ultimately. So, right, it's guest first primarily, or at least user first, right? If we're talking about edutainment, we don't necessarily think of them as guests, but it is user first, guest first. And I think then you have a greater opportunity to find that serendipitous connectivity to a particular product market fit.
I think you need to make room in your heart, as it were, for serendipity rather than just being blinded by this is the only way this is going to work. This is the only way you can play this product. This is the only way we can sell this system. Flexibility and, don't give me clever generals, give me lucky generals. Serendipitous activity is very heavily based on luck, and luck means luck doesn't just fall in your lap. Sometimes you have to engineer the environment for luck to take place. I am concerned that we are still at the point with the technology that we're looking for a killer application, a serendipitous application, which none of the developers have thought of yet. They're hoping that some dev out there, indie dev, is going to come up with that for them, rather than they're walking out of the front door with a master plan and a world domination plan. But maybe we can touch upon that a little bit more in a future guest gap.
Yeah, I think I would love to do that and dig in a little bit more. But coming after the quick break, we will dive into the economic trends.
Intercard makes cashless easy with award-winning readers, self-serve kiosks, real-time reporting, and flexible guest payment options. From play cards and credit cards to mobile payments and QR codes. Since introducing the industry's first card system in 1989, Intercard has helped operators reduce cash handling, increase guest spending, and run smarter venues. Intercard is the world leader in cashless technology. If you aren't already part of their global family of customers, they hope you'll become one soon. Visit intercardinc.com to learn more.
Thank you for that. And jumping into the trends in the economy quickly, and we get a little bit more transparency about how the Saudi Arabian investment fund is going to get their money back from their investments. There's no such thing as free money. And while they were pouring money into their various investments, the sun was shining. Well, now that the storm clouds have come, they want their pound of flesh. And the first ones to feel that is Live Golf, who've suddenly found out that they've entered into a lending agreement with the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Trust. We're looking at, over the last few years, since 2022, the PIF putting in about 6 billion, give or take, into the operation. And now they've turned around and come up with quite a considerable payback plan. The details are still a little bit sketchy, but it is a repay, must pay under a certain period, and that has put pressure on Live Golf even more than the position they were when the sugar daddy had gone away from their operation. This is the beginning. We will now see other operations that are dependent on the PIF as their cash cow to suddenly look a little bit more green around the gills, as they now have to enter into quite a considerable payback plan. And I wouldn't really want to get on the wrong side of the PIF for not paying back that debt.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. And while obviously this has direct implications for other organizations tied to the PIF, for Live Golf, this is probably the fourth or fifth nail in the coffin, not the final one, but this is getting pretty close to their overall decline and demise. This moving from having PIF as a direct investment equity holder and equity investor to now being a lender is not the right path, because they're only going to continue to build debt, and I think eventually we'll just end up seeing some sort of administration or full-on bankruptcy.
It would be an exit strategy that I know certain executives would favor, rather than having this debt over them, especially as they're going to be paying a premium on that debt under the current conditions. But again, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We still haven't heard how many of the original sporting athlete golfers have jumped ship and run back to the Ryder Cup following the changes. But again, one to watch, as well as the other companies that will suddenly be looking a little bit more shirtless. Jumping into the trendings in the biz, the big news of time of recording was kind of a told you so moment. We had known through various sources that something was going on within Simworks Robocoaster. And then we wake up to the news, which was a little bit spotty at the beginning and took some time to congeal, that they had now been acquired, or their assets had been acquired by Intamin. After doing some digging, and now that we have a little bit more transparency as embargoes have been lifted, we get a little bit more knowledge of what's been going on. And sadly, I had some time on my hands and I created a spreadsheet. So are you sitting comfortably?
Yes.
Then I will begin. I have to, for the sake of transparency, admit that I'm an ex-employee of Hughes Rediffusion, or Thales Entertainment Leisure. They were the company many moons ago that created the Tour of the Universe motion simulator. They also created the Star Tours simulator for Disney, as well as being a military simulation and commercial simulation company. They made Boeing 747 and 767 simulators, military simulations. They moved into the entertainment business. They scaled their hardware down, and they suddenly then made what would be known as the Ventura motion seat theaters, you know, those kind of tube systems that sat on the motion base and rocked everybody around, that then migrated to the 4D theater systems. Very popular period of our industry. Anyway, from that wreckage as Thales, or as Thomson rebranded out as Thales and all of that, they sold off the entertainment simulation and media division to a company called AI Group. AI Group would then be acquired by a new startup called Simworks, UK company. Simworks had, funny enough, a lot of ex-directors that had been involved with the Thomson Group, as well as with the AI Group. And this is where we enter into the confusion and murkiness of a number of our media-based attraction companies. I can point to many of the established media attraction companies and point to confusing rat's nest of investments and post-acquisitions. In this particular case, Simworks went on and started to deploy their 4D theater systems in a number of facilities. Another company, Robocoaster, was developing robotic arm motion ride systems. They worked with companies like Dynamic Attractions, who also has gone through their own kind of baptism of fire. When these companies work together, money gets changed hands. They work on projects together where the payment for the project goes through one source, and it is shared amongst the group. For example, Robocoaster had involvement with the Harry Potter attraction at Universal that used a robotic arm and indirectly was paid through Dynamics and all of that. Anyway, problems with finances occurred, and in 2015, Simworks acquired or merged with and acquired the assets of Robocoaster, the Robocoaster name going on. So the operation in 2015 became Simworks Robocoaster. And then over the last few years, there's been difficulties in finding projects and developing. It is clear that Simworks Robocoaster has gone through some issues, but they still sit on quite a large, what I would say, catalog of IP and technology expertise, and even some ride film content. And the rumor on the street is, from what we can glean, ETF, a very well-known ride film and simulation company, started negotiations towards a possible closer relationship with Simworks. Then ETF in 2024 was actually acquired by Intamin Ride Attractions, as they ETF's founder retired, and there was no one really there to move the operation on, so it seemed as a relationship of convenience for Intamin to become the godparent, as it were, to take control of that. And then, surprise, surprise, a couple of days ago, we wake up, news that Simworks has gone into administration, and then a accelerated merger. And that accelerated merger was to create a new company called Simworks Attractions, and that will be under the control and auspices of Intamin Rides, working very closely with ETF. Confused enough? Well, now you understand the pain and anguish that I have to go through chasing down these stories. The one interesting point about a lot of this is that the reason we were told regarding this accelerated merger agreement was that this was a job safeguarding pre-pack deal, an unusual term to use, but fundamentally what it meant was this company is about to close down. If it carries on along this trajectory, we need to come up with a deal. They have prospects of sales on the table. We will give them, a brand new debt-free operation to roll within, and they will be able to brush themselves off and reappear on the market now with a greater support of Intamin, a well-known name. Now, the cynical of our audience may also raise an eyebrow and say, what interesting timing, just as Universal UK is about to start placing tenders for development work for their brand new facility. And it is easier for Intamin to use a UK operation to place the largest share of attraction contracts than to try and do that from their position as being a European-only operation. That would be a cynic's view, and I'm not going to bow down to that. I'm just going to say, just like we've seen with Simex, iWorks, as we've seen with Dynamic Attractions, now we see with Simworks Attractions that this part of the market is tempestuous. There's a lot of debt still residing in a lot of these companies, and consolidation and scheduled shedding of problems is par for the course. And sadly, one of the victims of this is Robocoaster, who seems not to have been salvaged in this deal.
Or it may have been salvaged in just the fact that it's some legacy product sitting out there, and maybe there's some future way that Intamin decides to deploy this in one of their experiences at some minor level. I'm not sure that it was necessarily a great idea initially, or maybe it was a good idea but not well implemented. The technology wasn't quite there to deploy it properly. Who knows, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think there's two things going on here. Like you said, one, it was a way to, for Simworks Robocoaster to salvage their staff and their team and make sure that they have ongoing viable employment as they move into Intamin. I think there's the cynical point of view that as you said, is certainly a possibility as well. I think the thing that gets me is a lot of what Simworks does definitely crosses over with some of the capabilities that Intamin already has in-house. They have a whole immersive attractions division, which is basically all that Simworks does. And so don't know exactly where this will fit, other than, again, like you say, might be the UK division that allows Intamin to be able to, solve for certain important tax issues as they're working on the new Universal UK location.
We will have to wait and see. I assume the first appearance of the brand new Simworks Attractions brand will be at the London show in September, and we'll be able to speak to the C-suite, who seem to have survived unchanged. They have just stepped over into the brand new Simworks Attractions operation. Again, I agree with you that there is a little bit of duplication, and Intamin are not going to allow waste to continue for much longer. But again, early days. The understanding and the contracts and acquisitions are the ink is only now just drying. Moving on, and we touched upon this in a recent open and shut, but we have another Topgolf opening. Why do you look at me weirdly? We have lots of Topgolfs opening. Well, not like this one. The New Jersey, New York facility, 27,000, follows the traditional format of 3 levels, multiple hitting base. I've never liked that name, 102 of the bloody things. But behind the scenes, we are now seeing a pivot. We are seeing this traditional format now embracing some of the new think. And some of that new thing can be seen in the addition of 20 amusement machines. So this will be the second time that we've seen a Topgolf facility actually include amusement systems. as well as including competitive socializing elements, and also pivoting a little bit more away from the sportainment and a lot more towards the entertainment kind of model. While this is an old format construction, I think it is the beginning of a new think in their operations, and that can be indicated by how our friends at Topgolf are calling this a venue prototype.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was just going to call out the fact that they refer to this as a prototype. And so it's interesting. I mean, they made what I would call small pivots. I mean, they're important pivots, but adding amusement machines, only 20, given the size of their venue, seems absolutely astronomically minuscule. And I feel like they could have done 80 to 100 machines spread throughout the facility, or something to that extent. I know they're trying to consolidate in certain area of their venue. We've seen their quote unquote arcade, Topgolf arcade in the prototype in the past. So don't know if this is an expansion of that or something new. But I feel like this is also a miss. But look, at least they're trying to change things up. I think the one thing that stands out for me is that they still have not evolved their website to accommodate for this new prototype. So when you go to the Parsippany location on their website, it looks like just every other one of their locations. There's nothing unique, nothing new about this that's called out on the website, because they've got a very specific, strict format, and there's no place to put in the fact that there's an arcade, that there's a social lounge with social entertainment, other than the fact that they just put in a link to their Top Tracer games, which is obviously part of their main attraction.
Well, the current news that we're dealing with at the moment is that David, the new CEO, is actually doing a tour. He's finished his tour of Topgolf venues, and now he's actually visiting Top Tracer venues, where their golf shooting range system is. The website sucks. If you type in just in the search arcade or amusement machines, nothing pops up. I think the last time I tried that, it sent me to the press release about the Namco partnership that led to the first Topgolf facility to have a test prototype arcade in it, which, funny enough, also had 20 machines in it. And I think someone's just done a cookie cutter and dropped in the same kind of Bandai Namco experience into this facility to see if it works in the US as well as it did in the UK facility, and then they're going to ride from there. I look at this and I go, interesting prototype, needs more work. I look at that green outside the front of that bar and go, mini golf, mini golf, mini golf, mini golf. I look at the number of arcade machines that they've got in there and I go, you don't know what you're doing. And then particularly I look at their swing suite simulator setup and I go, why isn't that in there? But again, early days, there's only so much that can be done. And I've noticed that after a major layoff process, that Topgolf is now suddenly advertising that they're on a spree for hiring executives to help drive the operation. So I kind of get the feeling that they're trying to right the ship of state one step at a time.
Yeah, and they're trying to at least do what they can for. Sorry, I was just going to say that they're trying to do at least what they can for an existing build that was already underway, and they're trying to make the modifications that they can with an existing layout, and hopefully, they may have jumped the gun by using this term, the prototype term, for this particular location, but at least they're beginning to test changes here, and hopefully in new builds they'll really focus on having a new prototype.
Game experience and new marketing push, I think, are the key things that they need to address here. But what do we know? Moving on. And we have our friends at Slick City. Again, we also touched upon this in a recent Open and Shut. Another example of the pivot away from the traditional norm. This isn't your grandfather's slide emporium and trampoline active entertainment. This is a mixed entertainment site. Really, we're looking at an action park that, along with its 16 slides, also now includes go-karts. It also includes mini golf. It has quite a heavy amusement mix and F&B. And this is really moving forwards with how the active entertainment sector is going to have to position itself to stay relevant.
Apologies. This is absolutely what Slick City has to do in order to stay relevant as they continue to expand. I haven't had a chance to read through their FDD. Don't know if it was updated for 2026 to allow for this type of attraction mix. The prior FDDs were very strict about what they could put in, especially as it relates to active play attractions, so trampolines, et cetera, and other things. But obviously, they've added in non-active play, so mini golf, go-karting, amusement, things that are much more aligned with the traditional FEC model, even though they continue to call themselves an action park, which, to be fair, go-karting can be action, certain amusement can have action. Mini golf is a little bit more lackadaisical in its energy, so maybe doesn't fit quite in the action park model. But the fact that they are experimenting at least with additional attractions, or at least letting their franchisees experiment, is a good sign, because I was very concerned about the speed in which Slick City was expanding with their very limited slide-based model, and was concerned about their long-term viability, not for Slick City itself. The franchisors will do just fine in some sort of future IPO or exit. I was concerned for the individual franchisees who are buying into a model that was not viable over a longer period of time than 5 years.
And you hit the nail on the head for me. Is this a franchisee leading the charge, or is this Slick City, the franchisor, suggesting a expansion of the model? It will be fascinating to hear how the Woodbridge facility does, and also to find out from the operator, the franchise who was the one that actually drove this particular pivot in its positioning. That said, we're also seeing other Slick Cities now offering a much more broader package model, as well as other active entertainment venues. Hey, F&B, essential to your entertainment mix if you're sensible. If you're putting your investment into a decent F&B mix, why not have a branded operation? And you can't go wrong with adding a little bit of Shack. And so our friends at Elevate Fun have announced that they will be incorporating into the first facility in Miami, but plans to roll out across their chain of facilities the Big Chicken brand that Shack has established. I haven't had the pleasure of trying his particular blend of chicken, but it is an IP that can fit into an Elevate mixed-use leisure entertainment model quite easily. We have seen other operators in this, such as Evo, I think, also adding food counter kind of components to their entertainment mix. And if you have the kitchen space, you can just brand a particular part of your food offering to be a branded option rather than just a generic.
So I'm glad we're talking about this. When I saw this, I thought, okay, look, interesting partnership and deal here. It makes a lot of sense given Elevate's locations in Florida. And so, but I was curious, wasn't it Elevate that was also experimenting with like 1 or 2 locations that were co-located with their Elevate Fun locations with a big food court? I'm almost positive it was a big food court. I was trying to find where they actually did those end up continuing? Did they close those down? I was trying to find them online, and I couldn't. But bringing in this type of thing, I would have expected to be more in their food court area than into an Elevate Fun venue, which leads me to think that the whole concept of Elevate, it wasn't food, it was like something different. I thought it should have been food, and there was something weird, but it was would have made more sense to be in there. It makes me think that became non-viable, and so now they're looking for other food operations to come into their Elevate Fun locations.
You'll remember, if we jump back in the myths of time, I think more than 24 months ago, we talked about Elevate doing a food court. We talked about round one doing a food court, and we also talked about Evo doing a food court. I can't tell you the success of either of those because they've disappeared without a trace. So that usually means that something hasn't happened or that particular model hasn't been pushed forward. And I would agree with you that something like this should be just parachuted straight into their existing food court if it was still operational. So maybe this is a new direction for their F&B offering. That said, how many franchise food facilities will look at location-based entertainment? One of the few that I know that did make a serious input into breaking into our sector was the sandwich chain. Senior moment at the moment. Famous sub sandwich chain. They put their money into breaking out of their traditional retail facing facilities and going for pop-up and smaller locations, and they were looking the sub chain. That, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, these are the kinds of chains that you would think about maybe that they would like to have an amusement or location-based entertainment presence. But also remember that these operations also have presences in the theme park sector where they see a much better return on their investment.
Agreed. And the theme park sector tends to have the model in many cases where you have these independent operators coming in and operating particular spaces, acting as lessees of some space versus, most FECs, if they're operating F&B, it's typically a single experience, single owner operator across both the amusement and the F&B, unless it's obviously restaurant first and they're adding an amusement, and then sometimes you have route operators, right? That goes the inverse that way, but that's obviously not the way Elevate Fund works. And so, I think the one thing I'd be a little bit concerned about if I'm Elevate Fund or if I'm in any FEC who's bringing in an outside franchisee is just not being able to control the entire guest experience. And if somebody's frustrated with the food they get at Big Chicken, they're not going to leave a negative review for Big Chicken. They're going to leave a negative review for Elevate Fun. And that is, and you don't have full control when it's a franchise location with a separate owner operator inside of your facility.
That cuts both ways. Again, Shaq is an incredibly astute businessman when it comes to this. And if this doesn't work, and it impedes the brand, his rollout plan schedules, then he'll move back. Anyway, moving on, and we had one of our I told you so moments. So we kind of called it that we saw that our friends at Dave & Buster's really did need to sort out their marketing and online presence and just nail everything down. And surprise, surprise, we wake up a couple of days ago to the appointment of Jeremy as Chief Marketing Officer. Fascinating where Jeremy comes from. He's Planet Fitness. He's also been with Spin Master, so that's kind of in the exercise and fitness realm. But he's also served some tenure at Walt Disney Company, mainly on the marketing and brand side there, as well as 7 years with PepsiCo. So that's kind of telling us that he understands, hopefully, the social media side of the marketing push. He also understands big brand, but sadly, there's not a lot of entertainment there other than his 2 years with Walt Disney Company. And that wasn't really on the park side or the direct entertainment divisional side of the business. So a lot to do here and a very short period of time to do it in.
He's got a very big lift ahead of him, but the one thing that is both, I think, going to be a plus and a minus for him and his past experience is that he does come from a lot of franchise experience. And while Dave & Buster's is obviously not a franchise, he's familiar with making sure that each individual location is represented based on what they have at that location. One of my biggest frustrations with Dave & Buster's is that as they began to roll out new locations with their social bays, there was no distinction between a Dave & Buster's with or without the social bays on the website. And it was really difficult to understand, what am I getting at this particular location? And he at least understands the idea of multi-location website-based models, how to market individual locations uniquely depending on their mix of of unique things and capabilities. And so hopefully he's going to bring that to the table and have much more of a regional, local, hyper-local marketing focus versus a large, big brand focus. You need both of those in something to Dave & Buster's scale.
Chief marketing officer means that he's going to be controlling a team, and that team is going to have to deal with the brand, deal with the facility, deal with the experience, and correctly impart that to your core audience. And they're not doing a good job of either of those, as well as, I assume, which will fall under his retinue, having to consider what he has to do for main event. Our friends.
Main event? I don't know what you're talking about. Main event doesn't exist.
What's that weird brand you're talking about, Kevin?
Yeah.
F1 Arcade also going through some changes. The Las Vegas venue where we were visiting at the beginning of the year has shipped up and parachuted in a brand new general manager. The individual, CJ, had actually started at the company back in March. So while we were wandering around the facility, he was deputy manager there. And for all we know, we may have bumped into him. He's now been promoted up to general manager of the whole Las Vegas operation. And it is interesting to see that he comes from a background in competitive socializing. He was involved with State of Play, who own a number of the competitive socializing properties in the US. He was with Flight Club for 2 years, and he was also with Buffalo Wild Wings for 10 years. So he's got the running a restaurant and dealing with a bar mentality down pat. And hopefully, while he was with Flight Club, he also got his fingers burnt in operating entertainment experiences. I get the feeling that this will be the beginning of a progression within the American operation of F1 Arcade to, create an established C-suite.
This could be good. I mean, I'm hoping that CJ with his experience can turn that Vegas location around. I mean, when we went in there, it was a ghost town, and so really need somebody with this type of experience to come in and lift it up. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there.
Yeah, next March we'll be hopefully able to see the fruits of the labor. Moving on, and another, we called it, we knew that COSM needed to sort out its experience side. We actually mentioned that in a previous sound off. We knew that they were lacking in that department, and so they've parachuted in Lindsay in the role of Senior Director of Experience Design. And it is interesting that Lindsay actually comes from working for a year with Sphere Entertainment and also has spent 7 months, but spent some time with Industrial Light and Magic. Let's hope that she has the capabilities to deal with the changing landscape, especially following some news that we're just going to talk about.
Yeah, this is great to see. And yeah, absolutely. This is another area where we said this was some improvements that COSM needed to make. So I'm glad they're finding the right people to put in these places.
We hope that they've got their finger on the pulse of the people and the fit that they need. And they're going to be needing to position themselves out because of the news that broke just a matter of hours of recording this event, where Sony Pictures Entertainment, the key cornerstone of the entertainment side of the Sony operation, has decided to put $100 million into COSM. That makes them in a Series C filing the leading Series C funder or investor, though this will turn into a minority stake in the overall COSM operation. That said, this Series C is going to bring in an expected $250 to $3 million into the operation. And for part of that investment, that means that the Sony Pictures Entertainment chairman and CEO actually gets a chair at the board at COSM. And I think that this will have serious ramifications to the rollout of COSM facilities going forwards. We know that they're sitting on 2 other facilities that are in the works, but I also think that this will change maybe the IP and the content that they roll in their facilities, having access to this powerhouse.
Oh, 100%. This will impact the content. I mean, obviously the investment is, to help with expansion and growth and opening new locations, but also in content development. There's no question that Sony is looking at COSM as a new medium for either both new media in general, so creating new types of visual media that can play on COSM's theaters, or taking their existing, looking at this as like the new IMAX to some extent. And is there a way to lift up a really struggling cinema market, and looking at COSM as maybe this new direction in which it's much more experiential cinema instead of just going and watching a flat screen.
Experiential cinema writ large. We've been talking about Cinetainment. We've been talking about the others. I like the analogy of IMAX very much. And I'm also sure that Sony Pictures saw how well the Matrix screenings went at the COSM's facilities and wanted a slice of that. Wonder how Warner's going to feel about all this going forwards. Be prepared to see a competitor to COSM's on the horizon very soon. Moving on, and for all of you that follow the Tourist of Pain, that's where these operations fit in to the mix. And then moving on to the next, tech and IP trends. Holoviz gave us a little bit of transparency to their involvement with Netflix House. I wasn't aware that a number of the attractions that were parachuted into Netflix House were developed by Holoviz. It's interesting that they were the bidders that won this particular. The Dallas and the Philadelphia facilities have a mix, and the top 9 mini golf, Mr. Sacramento Day. I love the manga series. I should be able to pronounce its name. As well as the Squid Games attractions that have gone into each one of these facilities, has been developed by Holoviz, and they've now been able to tell us a little bit more about what they've been developing and actually share a lot more behind the scenes. Again, how much of this will be cookie cutted into the Las Vegas facility that will be opening up at the end of the year, we don't know yet, and how much of the lessons learned from this developments, or these developments, will go into the future facilities are questions that need to be asked. But at least we're getting a little bit more transparency behind the curtain of how these projects were developed.
And I don't know that maybe Netflix House had a certain period of time where they had to embargo their involvement as the attraction developer. Maybe this is part of their larger partnership with Netflix House, that as they're expanding and being involved in Las Vegas. I don't know the reasons. I would hope, though, that just speaking to Netflix House Las Vegas, that it's not just a cookie cutter carbon copied from one location to the next, but that they do indeed think about the, really try to create some new attractions for that location. And obviously with the idea of rotation from one location to the next versus a carbon copy. So, Netflix House in Vegas is the same as Philadelphia, is the same as Dallas.
And a constant iteration or updating of the Netflix House concept, not sitting on one particular selection of attractions, seems to be writ into their charter, because we woke up to the news of a brand new immersive experience that's going to be parachuted into both Netflix locations. I don't know which attractions at those facilities are going to be ripped out and replaced by K-pop Demon Hunter, the immersive experience. But it is clear that they are, really working on the idea of constant updates with their IP to these attractions. And as you say, hopefully that once they find a successful one, they will migrate that across their venues. I don't know too much about who's behind this immersive experience and what level of immersion they're going for. But again, hopefully in a couple of months' time, we'll be able to get a look at that.
Yeah, I find the one thing I'll call out here is that this is something that K-pop Demon Hunters, this immersive experience would have been something that they would have partnered with Fever to test out and do a couple of pop-up locations for this. And you know what? Now they don't have to use Fever. They have their own venues that they can trial and test these types of things out. And it is interesting that you haven't seen a Netflix Fever new attraction partnership in quite some time since Netflix House opened. So something that Fever, I'm sure, is obviously thinking about as they open up some of their own permanent locations to test some of their concepts and trying to replace maybe the nice pipeline that Netflix provided them for new attraction concepts.
And not just Fever, there are other companies that are involved in the pop-up attractions market that will be looking at Netflix House and thinking maybe they need a permanent bricks and mortar facility rather than just taking available space per project. Permanent space per project, and our friends at Mattel have doubled down on the Uno Social Club. I had heard mixed reports about how it went in Vegas, but our information must have been incorrect because the company has now said that they're going to be rolling out across the US at least 5 pop-ups over the next couple of months, weeks and months. I have the list below, but Philadelphia, New York, Florida, Texas, all of the usual suspects, and Los Angeles will all be getting a Uno Social Club. Remember, the Uno Social Club includes the Uno tables, it includes DJ, includes members, master of ceremonies, and it also includes a special drinks and cocktails based around the Uno brand. Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to hear a lot more about how popular this approach is going to be outside of the local mix.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just running something from their website now, talking about the Uno Social Club. I still get the sense that these are pop-ups. Like, I don't know that this is permanent locations. I still feel like this is something that is meant to be temporary, coming around to all these different cities, and maybe they will end up being permanent. But it feels very much like a speakeasy type, one-off unique locations in very popular markets. And so, anyway, wait to obviously to be seen. But I like the concept. I think it could actually do really well.
It could.
It still just feels to me like it's not fully defined as to what exactly it is and what exactly I'm to experience. And is it going to be around 2 months from now, or do I have to get there now and see it, or am I going to be able to, have time to get my friends together? That I just don't know. And I do want to get into one of these in the next time I'm out in LA late, or in Philly or something like that, just to see what one of these experiences is like.
Yeah, we need to see if this may be Mattel's Netflix House moment, where they are testing this particular brand to see this particular approach to see if it will fit on a standalone stage as well as on a pop-up stage. But at the moment, it just feels like a pop-up speakeasy to get the brand out there.
Mm-hmm.
Competitive socializing is gathering momentum and unique applications that can be deployed beyond the beer pong, beyond the X-Ray, beyond the darts, beyond the racing simulators, beyond the off-the-shelf approaches. We see some novel development, and here we have a fusion from our friends at Battle Up, a fusion of what I would say is tabletop mini golf and snooker or pool, and we have interactive crazy pool. It combines 15 unique holes, which are configured, and it's a modular design, so you can have as many tables. It's supported by digital screens, and hopefully we will get a chance to see it in action at one of the coming shows in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I was trying to find a video here that we could play just to get a sense for what it is, but they actually don't have this yet on their Battle Up website. So this is clearly such a new product launch that they have not yet put it on their website. I was able to find maybe one YouTube video that maybe was showing it at at one of their venues and the locations that is already active. But anyway, really was hoping to find it. We've seen certain concepts like this, not necessarily with pool, but with mini golf locations where they have the elevated mini golf and using the back side of the putter, the little rubber handled part of the putter, and you're hitting the ball, sort of like pool. So seems like they've just taken that concept and elevated it and created an actual game format.
Yeah, we're a little ahead of the game here on this one. But I'm sure their marketing will catch up soon. Moving on, and our friends at Area 15 have added a new attraction to their Zone 2, as they like to call the area where the Jumbo Jet and the Interstellar Arc is, and all the other, and Universal Unleashed is. They've added a drop tower. So we have in Zone 1 their raising and falling cocktail experience that we did many moons ago, I remember, Brandon, and now just across the other side you'll hear the screams and shouts of a drop tower. I look at this with some interest. This feels to me like Area 15 looking to try and keep the momentum going and the drawability to Zone 2, as much as trying to generate an audience, a recurring audience to Zone 1 of their offering. They've also gone through, if some of you will remember, we talked about in the previous Open and Shut, that they've added some new entertainment inside of the main Area 15 unit. And we are also about to hear some new openings within the Zone 2, some new food outlets, as well as a new competitive socializing entertainment outlet going into that space. Constant movement on the Las Vegas venue, though we still haven't really seen them break out with new venues in other localities.
This attraction, I'm really trying to understand how it's different from a typical drop tower. They talk about, I know there's supposed to be a little bit of a pre-show beforehand that's got some art and some immersive and cinematic story driven, but it's a fucking drop tower. So let's just call it what it is and not try to make it something more. They're not wearing VR goggles or anything else. It's nothing. There's no additional experience here. It is a drop tower with maybe a bit of a story driven pre-show, but look, not everything at Area 15 has to be psychedelic or trippy art or have altered states of perception. We can just have fun attractions that are thrill based as well.
They're still looking for that Omega Mart moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
Moving on, and as the summer sun burns up London, the World Cup burns up the TV and the hospitality. I can attest to the bar industry in the UK and in Scotland and other parts of Europe are doing incredibly well out of the TV viewing. And I am just a little bit surprised that we in the location-based entertainment didn't really jump on the bandwagon. And just doing a cursory observation of the operations that are pushing the FIFA World Cup or association with soccer at some level. We have our friends at Neo Experience with their Neo Soccer, which has just been launched. Again, I would argue that should have been launched back in March and pushed heavily. But again, what do we know? Toca Social, we'll talk a little bit more about what they're up to. We have our friends at Maya, which we've talked about before, with their virtual reality audience-based experience that has a soccer theme. And then we have the amusement boys, and Electric Coin I talked about during Open Day. Coverage had their football champ system, and surprise, surprise, our friends at Sega have been selling the Ice Games World Football Pro. Those are products that aren't affiliated. None of these products are linked to directly branded to the World Cup. Obviously, no one has pockets that deep in our sector at the moment. The one thing that always catches me is Sub Soccer. I've been following the team behind this concept over the years, many years, of this table-based football. It's a tabletop, but the ball is captured in at the bottom of the table within a netted environment, and it has scoring, and it's a kind of a mini football audience experience. This system seems to be riding high. Sega Amusement International actually promoted the products that they had that had a football or soccer link to them, and it kind of showed how half-hearted our industry has been to supporting what could have been quite a popular branding association.
This was a complete miss by our industry, frankly. It's not like we didn't know the World Cup was coming. It comes every 4 years, and it was coming to the US. Obviously, we knew this long ago, far longer than 4 years ago, because they announced the upcoming locations many years before. And it's great. I mean, I know they're trying to capitalize on the popularity of soccer for the launch of these attractions and launch of these amusement pieces. And these locations, obviously like Topa Social, etc. But they should have done this at Amusement Expo last year, or at least at IAPA Expo last year, to give operators time to install these, have them ship out, get them installed, get them operational, and then market them as well leading up to it. So it's not about just having it available during the World Cup. You want to pre-market leading up to the World Cup and leverage everything else that's built around it. This is what we talk about all the time as it relates to valuable IP layered over the top of amusement products or amusement machines and other attractions. When you know a movie is coming out, especially a sequel to a movie that you might already have something in your facility, move it towards the front. You leverage marketing to get the word out about the fact that you've got this type of IP, and guests can come and interact with something they just saw on the movie screen in your venue. This is exactly what we should have done with the World Cup, and we completely whiffed on this as an industry.
Yes, we're in a transmedia industry that doesn't know that it's in a transmedia industry, really. I would argue that our friend at Dave & Buster's, the new marketing director, will have to take a long, hard look at how they have branded themselves next door to this World Cup, the same way that our friends at Toka Social have embraced the watch party element of the World Cup, and have been talking about their brand new Paris facility, seeing vast attendance and to watch the game. But that is a unique watch the game kind of approach, rather than a concurring branded experience that could have built up, maximized, and then been played into generating repeat visitation. These are the issues that our industry is going to have to nip in the bud and become a IP ascendant industry, or else someone else will come along and eat our dinner for us. We can't be complacent about this.
Absolutely, completely agreed.
Moving on and away from the soccer, but to the other competition that we were dealing with, AWE has concluded, and we kind of seen the battleground laid out for the next revolution of what is being called smart tech. I'm having issues here because not all smart tech is the same, and there is a danger that the desperation of the media to try and restart the bandwagon for immersive technology, they are blurring the lines between what the technology offers We have our friends at Meta Meta with their Ray-Ban brand. And of course, we have the two flavors. We have the AI version that really is a camera and AI voice assistant. And then we have the higher quality system, which includes a display to give you that augmented reality component. And all of the four systems here are really talking to that augmented reality approach. And you can kind of see that they're expensive for this. So you really have to have that killer application that will drive people to using them. All of these systems are being pivoted towards consumer application. All of them have that screen as well as that AI smartware capability. But that sticker shock, you're not going to get people to put their hands in their pocket unless you can offer them something that's compelling. And that serendipity we were talking about earlier hasn't turfed up yet. We haven't got a killer app on these systems that you can point to and say, aha, this is the reason why I'm going to spend $1,000 on one of these head-mounted glass systems that makes me look a little bit stupid. And the danger of looking a little bit stupid was kind of seen when Spec at AWE launched their system at the show, and especially as they did a number of live TV interviews of the launch, and they had the pleasure of watching the stock ticker ticking down on their stock price as the audience voted with their feet on how much they thought those glasses sucked and they cost too much. Really, real-time painful situation to see Snap taking a pounding, and to be blunt, their prices haven't bounced back after this. Again, the audience is still not 100% sold on these AI or AR glasses, sorting out the confusion of what does what, sorting out the confusion of what I'm getting for my over 1,000 buckaroonies. And I was able to put the system on and do one of the game experiences that they had. Surprise, surprise, they created a mini location-based entertainment experience. And I think during the last sound off, I was just about to go off and do this when I had the chance. And, I can say that the technology is as comparable as what we were seeing from HoloLens, but now in a glasses form factor, a little bit wider field of view, but not astounding, and still leaving me a little bit cold to how compelling and immersive the experience was, though I expect Specs to come up with at least one killer app in the next couple of months, or else they've shot their wad a lot early. And the dangers of throwing yourself into the market too early can be seen by what's happening with Meta at the moment with their AI and AR glasses. We've talked about the legal problems that Meta's having regarding the screening of material that is being captured by their smartware. We now have a whistleblower revealing that outside contractors were getting access to pictures that were unsolicited, and were, the customer would not be happy that a third-party contractor was getting access to them. Meta has kind of not admitted to any fault here, but internal leaks have revealed that they have paused the employee tracking program following data being collected by smartware systems. Really nice to think about buying your smartware only to be harvested as a guinea pig. And then we have the Pennsylvania lawmakers turning around and throwing out a bill, which they're hoping to put into action, where all wearable, recordable AI and AR systems will require a recording light indicator, and that they're actually putting into the bill that it will be an offense to cover up that light or to deactivate that light and collect material still. This could cause other states and other countries to think about a similar process. And then we go back to that glass hole moment. that killed our friends with the eyeglass, Google Glass platform. We are at that moment where how long will the fashionability of this tech carry it across into majority applications without a killer app?
I think you just nailed you hit the nail on the head. It's not the fashionability as much as it is the killer application. If there were a killer application that were to come out, fashion would follow. And I think there would be a complete revolution. But all of these manufacturers have really struggled to come up with a killer app, at least the consumer level. I think we're as we talked about in the guest gab, the LBEXR show just a couple of days ago. There's some potential LBE opportunities here with this form factor, and we saw at AWE as well. There's some enterprise applications for these as well. But certainly at the consumer level, and all the privacy concerns that exist, without that killer app, they're dead in the water.
Yeah. Well, we will have to wait and see. I think Mark is still feeling the bruises from his metaverse, and he will be throwing some cash. We have Connect in September, which is the great tech gathering where he will be showing the latest new aspects to his suite of platforms, and we expect to see some wow, though whether that wow turns into sales, we'll have to wait and see. Another thing that we had a chance to see at AWE was the production prototype of the mixed reality experience from our friends at Dream Park. They had the kiosk system that they have deployed into Dave & Buster's, and I was able to speak to the team after the show for some clarifications of some of the statements that were made during the event. First off, the two facilities that had been opened running the Dream Park experience were pop-up, temporary test facilities for them to understand if they could charge a premium price for the experiences that they were offering. Following that and the information that they collected, they pivoted the operation now towards selling the Dream Park package as a kit. As a Pelican case full of a number of headsets, dominating a certain space and being able to see the mixed reality experience through their headsets. That has now migrated onto the next phase, which is the Dream Box, which is the kiosk self-service system. And the current prototype that was there doesn't have it, but the final production version, I'm assured, will have the clean box UV lighting system as a means of sanitization for all of those systems. Again, my concerns about wipe down, I voiced it to the team, they took it on board, and they kind of stated that they are still a work in progress understanding it. We were lucky enough at AWE during the LBEXR stage presentations to actually have a member of the executive team from the Dave & Buster's at Hollywood that is running this system. Sadly, I didn't have the time while I was in Los Angeles to actually go to it. And they made it clear that they have seen some interesting results from running this experiment, and they're now in discussions about rolling this out. And our friends at Dream Parks are in discussions with over 20 venues to install their pop-up installation. And they listed about 3 or 4 venues that have already started to roll this. It is also being used as a kind of a party platform, birthday party platform, as well as an attraction. And hopefully by the time of IALPA in November, we should have a better picture of how sticky this approach has been, this pivot in their approach has been.
Well, I find it really apropos that we started the sound off with the concept of serendipity, and then we end with basically what is effectively Dream Park looking for their serendipity and being agile, being nimble, making changes to their model. while I have still struggles with some of their form factor, having to hold the thing with one hand, the game experience itself is a little bit a little bit of a letdown. After you've done it for a little while, it gets a little bit old. But like all that to be said, they are continuing to experiment and shift and try things. I think this kiosk type model is really unique, is really interesting. We haven't seen this in any other type of VR or AR experience yet in this form factor. So I do appreciate that they're continuing to think out of the box, truly, and move forward and find a way forward. And it would be interesting to see how they continue to evolve their gameplay and their content and even their overall physical experience with their device and their space.
I was able to play Wizard's Duel, which is a wand-based MR experience. So moving away from the Mario-esque kind of approach and now creating a wizard's environment with cauldrons and stalls and magic activity if you wave your wand in the correct way. Yes, it was an experience in mixed reality. It was compelling for a period of time, but longevity I do not see there. But maybe that's not something that they are focused on at the moment, but more on a kind of wizarding wonder initially. And again, we really do need to come to grips in more ways than one with how they're going to be operating their head-mounted displays, especially as they're still using MetaQuest 3s in this broken down or non-strapped configuration. And I think that the company will need to consider moving over to another manufacturer's headset. But again, 20 facilities utilizing their system, if they can establish that, if they can create a launch pad to build upon, then hopefully serendipity will strike.
Yep.
Anyway, that's it from me for this particular sound off. We have a horde of Stinger reports bouncing out the door as we speak. We also have an entertainment social arena in the works covering the London sector of competitive socializing. And I'd just like to thank all of those that are keeping us up to date and keeping us straight and true about this. Always use our LinkedIn if you need to reach out to me or directly through our email.
All right. Well, another great sound off with Kevin Williams, and that wraps up this week's. We'll see you on the next one.
Have a good one.